Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is called the Time Warp, and it is the featured cocktail in today's episode. Let's start. Shaker with ice. To that, we're going to add Midori or melon liqueur, 2/3 of an ounce. 2/3 of an ounce. I don't know. Next, coconut rum, 1/2 an ounce. Half an ounce. Next, pineapple juice, 1/2 an ounce. Then we shake. We strain that into our cocktail glass. Then we add raspberry cordial. I'm using razzmatazz, 1/4 ounce. So just a splash, really. One 1/4 ounce. And then 1/4 ounce of blue curacao. Another splash. Finally, garnish with cherries and serve. Yeah, it's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
It's just a jump to the left and then a step to the right. With your hands on your hips, you bring your knees in tight. You know the drill, or you will after listening to this week's episode of the Scary Spirits podcast, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I myself love a good campy musical, and I think this movie is just plain fun. But maybe cult classics aren't your thing. That's okay. You can watch anyway. Tim Curry alone is worth it. He's a delight. Cheers.
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hey everyone, I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen? You threw me there with your
I know.
introduction.
I was trying to do that, trying to make you laugh. But you didn't mess up. You did great.
Okay.
Try again
You're
next
trying
time.
something new. Is this getting old and old hat now? It's the same old for you. Trying to put some spice into the
Trying to
podcast.
spice it up a bit. I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Greg?
I'm good, Karen. Thanks for asking.
It's what we do.
All right, Karen, I have some corrections
No.
from last week. You know, Twins of Evil.
What did I do?
No, it was me.
Oh, good. Okay. What'd you do?
I believe I said that the Collinson twins were still with us. I believe I did. I don't really remember.
Sounds right. Sounds hopeful on your part.
Yeah, but that is not true. Madeleine Collinson died in 2014 at the age of 62, and Mary Collinson died in 2021 at age 69.
62 and 69. That's not very old.
No, it is not, Karen.
It's like middle-aged, isn't it?
Yeah, in like 60s, the new 40 or whatever. Isn't that what they say or something like that?
God, I hope so.
Okay, so that's all I had correction-wise. I believe this week's film was your choice. Was it not, since I chose the excellent Hammer film Twins of Evil?
This is quite a departure from that excellent film, yes.
Is it? We'll see. Go on.
I chose the 1975 cult classic, The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Any reason you chose that film, Karen?
Well, it did come out in August, so
Okay.
there's a connection.
And this episode will come out August 2nd, right?
We sure hope so. Counting on it.
Had you seen this film before, Karen, in its entirety?
I have, and I will tell you, I've seen it a couple times. I watched it and then thought, oh, I bet my mom would like this. So I brought it home on VHS for my mom to watch.
Yeah,
Probably rented it at the old Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, yep.
And we sat and we watched it till the end. My dad left halfway, not surprising. And she sat there and I said, well, did you like it? And she said, it was good, except for all the singing. Like, well, so I guess she didn't like it very much.
No, if you take all the singing out, Karen, there ain't much left.
There is not. So I thought that was pretty funny. She gave it the old college try, but wasn't for her. I myself enjoy a musical of all kinds.
Yeah, they're okay. I like musicals.
All of them. Opera. I like Broadway shows, those kind. And I even like what back in the day when there used to be public access television, there would be like little kids doing their ballet shows and stuff. I'd be sitting there watching it. I run the gamut. So I just enjoy a good musical.
I have not seen this film in its entirety, Karen.
You hadn't? I thought you said you had.
I thought I had in its entirety. I'd never seen it in its entirety. And after watching it in its entirety, I know why I have never seen it in its entirety. I have tried several times.
Oh.
I never make it all the way through.
Well, now you have.
Yeah.
You get a gold star. Well, that doesn't bode well for your review later.
It does not, Karen. Spoilers.
But that's okay. It's supposed to be campy.
Yeah, there's good camp, though, Karen. And then there's not good camp.
Well, I think it's great.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Well, no, they can see there's going to be conflict at the end. You got to wait till the end.
Okay.
I will say I've never seen this in a movie theater.
I have not either. So you've never gone and seen the midnight showing where people acted out and shit and throw shit and.
No, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. I believe my wife has.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Nope. Did you watch this on Amazon Prime, Karen?
I did.
Do you have a cocktail, Karen?
I was waiting to see where you were going. Yes, I do have a cocktail.
And what would that be, Karen?
It's called the Time Warp.
I see what you did there.
Clever.
how are we going to make this cocktail, Karen?
You're going to need 2/3 an ounce of melon liqueur, 1/2 ounce of Malibu rum, 1/2 ounce of pineapple juice, 1/4 ounce of blue curacao, 1/4 ounce of raspberry cordial, 2 cherries, and cracked ice. You're going to shake the Midori, Malibu rum, pineapple juice, and ice, then strain into a 5-ounce cocktail glass. Add raspberry cordial and blue curacao, garnish with cherries, and serve. And it does say enjoy.
Mm-hmm. It almost layered, but it
a little
has since
bit
mixed together.
The first part is very alien looking. It's got that neon green color going for it.
Yeah, and then the raspberry sunk to the bottom in mine.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I added them in order.
Because you're a rule follower. I know that about you.
Once you add the blue curacao, it kind of mixes together and gets muddy.
It's good, though.
Yours is a lot greener than mine.
Well, maybe I tipped the Midori a little too much. It happens.
Oh, Peter Vincent, you. Should we give our friends and listeners time to make their own, Karen?
Make their own time warp. I hope they don't get distracted by the dance. Give them a little extra time.
Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
All right, Karen, might you have a brief synopsis of this film, this musical from 1975?
I do.
Go on, tell me a story.
In this cult classic, sweethearts Brad and Janet, stuck with a flat tire during a storm, discover the eerie mansion of Dr. Frank-N-Furter, a transvestite scientist. As their innocence is lost, Brad and Janet meet a house full of wild characters, including a rocking biker and a creepy butler. Through elaborate dances and rock songs, Frank-N-Furter unveils his latest creation, a muscular man named Rocky.
Wow. We are definitely not a match on that one, Karen. But that is accurate.
Yes, it's probably one of the most accurate ones we've had.
All right, Karen, did you watch this film on Amazon Prime Video?
I did.
As did I.
But before we even go there, in case someone wants to put together the appropriate props, I have a list.
Oh, please. Tell everyone the props they will need. I'm quite interested myself.
So like I said, I have never seen this in a movie theater. And this is the prop list that the official fan site lists that you need if you go. But there are certain things that movie theaters will not allow you to do anymore. And so you need to check with your theater if you're going to do this at a midnight showing, because you don't want to get in trouble. But this is the official prop list. You're going to need rice. Obviously, at the beginning of the film, there's a wedding and you throw it then. Newspaper. When Brad and Janet are caught in the storm, Janet covers her head with a newspaper. So you mimic that when she's doing that. Water pistols. So when you've covered your head with the newspaper, people are squirting water on you. Candles and flashlights come on while they're singing There's a Light as they go towards the mansion. It's a long list. Rubber gloves. During and after the creation speech, Frank snaps his rubber gloves and people try to do it at the exact same time. Noisemakers. At the end of the creation speech, the Transylvanians respond with applause and noisemakers. So you would do the same. Confetti. At the end of the Charles Atlas song, the Transylvanians throw confetti as Rocky and Frank head towards the bedroom. Toilet paper. When Dr. Scott enters the lab, Brad cries out, "Great Scott." At this point, you should hurl piles of toilet paper into the air, preferably Scott's.
It's about the only thing it's good for. Scott, toilet paper.
It got good heft for throwing up into the trees.
I don't know. It sucks as toilet paper, but go on.
Well, there goes that endorsement. Toast. When Frank proposes a toast at dinner, everyone throws toast. Party hat. At the dinner table, when Frank puts on his party hat, everyone else does too. A bell. During the song Planet Schmanet Janet ring the bell when Frank sings, "Do you hear a bell ring?" Cards during the song "I'm Going Home." Frank sings, "Cards for sorrow, cards for pain. At this point, you should shower the theater with cards." Hot dogs and prunes. It has happened on occasion that fans throw hot dogs and prunes at the appropriate mention in the film, which I don't remember that, but that's the end. So it's a lot of things that you need to take with you. A lot of times in the theaters, it's the food items they don't want you to take, because if they don't get all of it, they'll get mice or something, or it's too hard to clean up. So there you go. That's what you're going to need.
Understandable. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Ready to get into it?
Let's go.
Film opens rated R, Karen. Nudity, violence, alcohol use, smoking, foul language, and sexual content.
So you're thinking it's going to be good.
You think it's got all you want in it. Film opens and we have Lips talking about the science fiction double feature, the song that includes lots of references to classic horror movie. And it kind of tells the story of the movie before you even see it.
It does. Those are Patricia Quinn's lips.
Yes.
She wanted to sing that song, but it's not her singing. And she wore all black makeup, was put into a clamp type device to keep her head still. And it says she was wearing caps on her teeth, but I didn't notice that.
I didn't think so. They looked legit because I was looking at her teeth later in the movie.
The lips on the posters aren't hers, though. They're a model's lips, but she had to be clamped in. Mm-hmm. And she wore all black and her face was black. So just her red lips show up. Fay Wray gets a shout out in the song.
She does. She does at the end, too. I think it's a reprise of the original song they do at the end. Tim Curry says, "What happened to Fay Wray?" I remember him singing that line. But anyway, then we got to a church, Karen. Apparently there's been a wedding. And I wrote, Tim Curry is the preacher.
Yeah, the whole cast is there.
Yeah,
as
and
the
Riff
guests
Raff
of the
is
wedding.
a farmer, and Magenta and Columbia, they're all in it.
It's in Denton Episcopalian Church.
Do you know where Denton is, Karen?
No.
Ohio.
Well, I know it's Ohio, but I didn't know what part.
Denton,
but I
Ohio.
can guess in a little bit where it might be.
I think it's fictional, but supposedly it's in Ohio. And when it comes time for the bride to throw the bouquet, Karen, Janet catches it.
That's true.
Then we see Brad and Janet in the cemetery, and they're singing a song.
Well, Janet's very excited about the wedding and how lucky the bride is. And Brad's like, yeah, I guess so. But then Ralph, who just got married, tells Brad that he could be next because Janet caught the bouquet. And Brad looks a little uncomfortable.
He does.
And he says, Ralph, you're lucky because she's a good cook who he married. But Janet's excited. Brad, not so much. But then Brad starts thinking about it. And
he professes his love for her in the cemetery.
Yes, he does.
And he has a ring ready.
Yes, he already has it.
So they get engaged. And then they run in the church to continue their song. And it looks like Tim Curry and Riff Raff and Magenta are in there getting ready for a funeral because they carry in a coffin with a wreath on it.
Yes.
I did think it was funny that they all sang the backup every time they said, Janet.
Without much enthusiasm.
Janet. Yeah. Then we cut to, I wrote, a man smoking a Marlboro, Karen. The narrator.
He's a criminologist, I think.
The expert, it said in the credits.
Oh.
Yeah, the criminologist, an expert. And he tells about Brad and Janet and a stormy night, and the spare tire was flat. And I don't know.
They were going to see their friend, Dr. Everett Scott, is where they were going. There were storm clouds where they were going, and the spare they were carrying was badly needing some air, but they didn't care because they're young and in love, Greg. Mm-hmm. You don't think about a spare tire when you're young and in love. It just doesn't even reach your top 10.
And we cut to Brad and Janet driving, listening to the radio, and it sounds like the Nixon resignation is on the radio.
It is. And while they're in there, they're driving down the road. It's raining really, really hard. And Janet pulls out the Plain Dealer newspaper.
Mm-hmm. She does.
Do you know where the Plain Dealer is from?
Cleveland,
Ohio. It is a major national newspaper.
But it didn't say Cleveland on the newspaper. I thought it was the Cleveland Plain Dealer, but maybe it's not.
No, it just says the Plain Dealer.
Okay.
At least the ones I've seen. Do you want to know when the first issue date was? Why don't you guess?
Why don't I guess? I'm going to say 1849.
You looked it up.
No, I didn't.
It's 1842.
Oh, okay. I was pretty close then.
Yeah, it's a major national newspaper. It's well respected. But yes, so they're listening to the radio, and it's Richard Nixon resigning. So do you know what night he resigned?
No, I do not, Karen.
So they're driving on August 8th, 1974.
Okay.
He delivered that speech on the evening of August 8th, 1974 from the Oval Office, and it was carried live on radio and television.
Do you remember it, Karen? Do you remember watching it as a young child?
I do not.
Okay. Me either. Once again, we were just babies.
Toddlers.
So then they come to a dead end, Karen. Brad thinks he may have taken the wrong fork in the road.
A couple of motorcyclists have just passed them going the other direction, and they do come to the dead end. But she wants to know, well, where did the motorcyclists come from then?
Right. So he turns around and then the tire blows, Karen.
Bam!
So they remember passing a castle not long ago, so they decide to make their way to the castle to use the phone.
Janet does insist on going with him because what if the owner of the phone is a beautiful woman? He might never come back for her. Brad's going to go by himself first, but they end up going together. And this is where she puts the newspaper on her head.
Mm-hmm. Then they enter a gate that says, enter at your own risk. And they sing a song, Karen. There's a light.
It's raining hard and it's thundering and lightning. So they're getting soaked.
Then the motorcyclist arrive behind them.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 of them, aren't there? Or maybe 3 motorcycles with multiple riders.
And we see Riff Raff in the window singing as well.
There's a big dome at the top of the castle that looks pretty modern.
Yeah, lit up.
Almost like a terrarium or something is up there. Or that's how
that castle's been used in Hammer films, Karen.
Oh, has it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's not the only thing in this film that is a reuse of a Hammer prop or set.
Does it have an association somehow with Hammer? Or it just...
No, they just use it because it's
available.
A place where they let you film shit, I guess. It was, Oakley Court, known for a number of Hammer films. It's the name of the castle or building.
It looks like it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's an actual place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a set.
No, the building is an actual building, yeah. I don't think it has that lighted dome on it. I think that was added. Post, But then we cut back to this man smoking a Marlboro, the expert. Now, right, he's looking at police files or something. Is that what he's doing?
That's what it looks
As
like.
He narrates.
It's like he's got their whole file and he's starting at the beginning and telling us what's happening or what happened. And then we're seeing it happen.
So they knock on the door and Riff Raff answers and Brad asks to use the phone. They enter. Clock strikes 12, Karen. And then they do the time warp.
Well, they're in the foyer and then they walk towards, there's music and party sounds in the background. And then they open these double doors into a ballroom, I guess. And that's where the party really starts.
And we keep cutting back to the smoking man again, the expert, telling you how to do the dance. I'm sure if anyone doesn't know about this movie, they're either really young or I don't know. But I think almost everyone has heard the song, The Time Warp, right?
Have you ever done the time warp?
I have not, Karen. Have you?
Probably. The first time I met my future sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, they went to high school together. We all went to the same high school. I walked into the bathroom and she was in there with one of her friends doing the time warp.
This was back in 1975, Karen.
No,
it was later.
Yeah, the movie has been around. It's been continuously shown since 1975.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you were trying to age me.
No, I was trying to age you. Yeah, it's still in limited release, some 47 years after its premiere. Longest running theatrical release in film history.
We should tell everyone how to do it.
You jump to the left and you jump to the right.
No, it's a jump to the left and then a step to the right. Place your hands on your hips and bring your knees in tight. But it's the pelvic thrust that really drives them insane. Or you, I don't know. Let's do the time warp again. Yeah. So it's not difficult.
No.
And everyone's doing it at the party.
They are. And Janet faints a couple times.
Yeah, she does.
It's too much for her. And she wants to leave. Yeah.
She does. She's afraid.
Okay. I was waiting for you to finish your thought.
With anticipation.
Patient, yes. So then we see Dr. Frank-N-Furter.
Wait, no, stop. So before that happens. So at the end of the dance, they do it a couple times and they all fall to the ground. All of the guests at the end. And then Brad stands there and he says, does anyone know the Madison? Yeah. And I was just curious. So the only reason I'm mentioning it is that the Madison was one of the first true line dances. And it was danced for the first time in Columbus, Ohio in 1957. You can watch it online. You can watch it on YouTube, what the Madison is.
Okay.
If you're interested. And Brad says they're probably foreigners with ways different than our own. It's probably folk dancing, he says. So Brad's kind of a square.
They both are. Him?
Yeah. Janet's very innocent, but Brad's kind of a square. And she's scared and wants to leave. But Brad kind of puts his foot down and says, he's here. We're here. We need to find out if there's a phone.
Yep. And then we see an elevator descending from behind them, specifically Janet, I think.
It's a famous scene.
Yes. And Dr. Frank-N-Furter arrives and sings his little sweet transvestite song.
Whips off his cape so everyone can see his lingerie. And he prances around. He doesn't walk.
Yeah, he's pretty good in those high heels here.
It's impressive.
A lot better than Rocky and Brad are later.
It's true. Practice makes perfect.
That's true.
Better than me in heels. I'll tell you that.
So then Riff Raff and Magenta basically strip down Brad and Janet, take their wet clothes off of them so they're just in their underwear, right? Janet has a slip on as well. Isn't that what that's called, Karen? A slip?
Yes. But right before that, Brad explains their situation. I just thought it was a funny line where Frank-N-Furter says, well, I can get you a satanic mechanic.
Yeah. It's part of the song.
Yes. Yeah. And he tells them he's making a man with blonde hair and a tan who's good at relieving his tension.
Come up to the lab and see what's on the slab.
And that's when he says, I see you shiver with anticipation. That's a famous line too.
So they decide to go up in the elevator to the lab.
Well, they don't decide.
He leaves first. He leaves first, and then Riff Raff and Magenta pretty much put them in the elevator and take them up.
And you're right. So Janet is in a bra and a slip, and Brad's in tighty whities, basically.
They're not so tiny. Did you say tiny?
I said tidy.
Tidy, okay. So when they get up to the lab, Dr. Frank-N-Furter gives them button-down shirts to wear. And he asks if they have any tattoos for some reason.
And he's in scrubs.
He is.
Female scrubs, kind of. Dress scrubs.
And then he gives a soliloquy, Karen.
I think he gives them lab coats, doesn't he?
No, he gives them like button-down, like Oxford shirts or whatever. Dress shirts. And he gives a soliloquy and says that he knows the secret of life. He's talking about his creation.
There's a little stage set up. So he goes and talks into a microphone. It's a breakthrough in biochemical research.
Then he reveals the creature in a tank.
Yeah, was it filled with water?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not later.
Yeah, the creature is wrapped up like a mummy.
Yes. And
that is another prop from one of the Hammer Frankenstein films.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Even the body, apparently. So then Riff Raff throws a bunch of levers and turns a bunch of knobs and whatever, right?
Yeah, and steam starts blowing out.
And Frank-N-Furter adds different colored fluids to the tank. And the mummy kind of like a skeleton, like superimposed on the mummy. It's like he's like X-ray or something, right? You can see the skeleton.
It's kind of like slow motion strobe light, where it's flashing, and then once we see the mummy, it flashes, we see the skeleton inside the mummy, then we see the mummy again.
And the creature raises its arms and stands up in the tank. Dr. Frank-N-Furter pulls the bandages from the head, revealing his head, and it's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man, Karen. And then he sings.
As they cut off his bandages.
Yeah, as Magenta and Columbia unwrap his bandages.
And he's in a gold bikini underwear.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Frank-N-Furter
and gold shoes
chases him around the room.
But Rocky doesn't seem happy.
No, he's kind of freaked out.
He's running away from Frank-N-Furter the whole time. And he's got a six-pack.
He does. And they all start commenting about, his creation. Dr. Frank-N-Furter's like kind of showing him off how, great he is and all that shit. And Columbia says, he's okay. So then Frank-N-Furter asks Brad and Janet for their opinion. And Janet says she doesn't like men with too many muscles.
Yes. Looking at Brad at that point.
Then we get the Charles Atlas song.
Yeah. Do you remember Charles Atlas ads? I do. I think do you remember him in there?
Oh, yeah. In comic books when I was a kid. Oh, yeah.
So Charles Atlas was actually born Angelo.
I mean, these were like old comic books, that were handed down to me, Karen.
Yes, of course.
Yes. But go on.
So Angelo Siciliano changed his name to Charles Atlas. He was Italian bodybuilder, Italian-born American bodybuilder, and he was the developer of the bodybuilding method and its exercise program, which spawned landmark advertising campaigns featuring his name and likeness. It's been described as one of the longest lasting and most memorable ad campaigns of all time. So it would show the scrawny weakling on the beach.
Getting sand kicked in his face.
Yes, it's that ad. And then you would sign up for this Charles Atlas program and you would get buff or swole.
Sometimes there are pictures of Charles Atlas with the springs doing his chest.
So as of 2023, the company continues to market a fitness program for the 97-pound weakling. The company's owned by someone else, but it's still out there.
But basically,
in case you don't want to get sand kicked in your face in Florida this year, Greg.
To me?
Yeah.
You talking to me? I'm not 97 pounds, Karen. Come on now.
You're getting close.
I've lost a lot of weight, but not that much.
I'm just saying you might be a weakling. Read between the lines, Greg. But you're working out now, so you're not on the Charles Atlas program, but...
No, not quite. But basically, Frank-N-Furter unveils a bunch of fitness equipment and exercise shit, and as they sing the song, Charles Atlas. Then there's an alarm that goes off, Karen, a red light flashing that says deep freeze. And then the door opens up and who we learn is Eddie enters, played by Meatloaf, the late, great Meatloaf. And he sings his song. And here I wrote, there's bad lip syncing in this.
By Meatloaf?
Yeah. Or by the editors. I don't know. They didn't do a good job. Because I'm sure he was singing along, but they didn't match it up, right?
Yeah, so it's a freezer that's in the wall, and the door just busts open, and Meatloaf comes out on his motorcycle and rides around. So the lab has an observation deck, we should say, and so
it looks a lot like the stage from the Kiss Dynasty tour, Karen.
Hey, good reference. Good reference.
Yeah, it had a ramp going all the way around the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Frank-N-Furter chases Rocky around that ramp. And then when Eddie or Meatloaf comes out of the freezer on his motorcycle, so he's all frostbitten looking when he comes out, and he rides around that ramp singing about rock and roll. Is this your first time listening to the Scary Spirits podcast? Or maybe you're a regular listener, but missed a few along the way. No worries. Not only can you find every episode on our website, scaryspirits.com, but you'll also get to enjoy awesome show notes too. I just want to say we really appreciate your support. Now let's get back to the show.
Then Frank-N-Furter forces Eddie back into the deep freeze.
So was he dead before? And is he a zombie coming back? Because he's frozen. How did he come back? Because he said it was a mercy killing.
He's like cryogenics, Karen. I don't know.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Maybe I got ahead of myself.
He's just on ice. And Frank-N-Furter kills him with an ice pick.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And he says he had some charms.
Really, it's not.
But you hear the squish.
Yeah, but it's not graphic.
No, it's not
Hardly
graphic.
any blood.
No, but it
looks like
cherries. The sound effects.
Looks like a cherry syrup in a slushy or something.
Kind of does. Well, they probably borrowed that from Hammer's films too.
Then we cut back to the smoking man again and narrating some more.
He says Eddie had his charms, but no muscle. And then Rocky flexes for him. And then Frank-N-Furter sings about body parts.
Yeah, and I noticed that Columbia seemed to have a thing for Eddie.
She did. She's very upset. And Rocky's all oiled up. And Frank-N-Furter finally does catch him. And they walk towards the bedroom and the curtains open and the confetti and everybody.
It looked like
claps.
Foam to me.
What looked like foam?
The confetti. You said it was confetti? I don't know. It looked like foam. It was weird.
It's a celebration as he goes into the bedroom.
Yes.
Like they're married.
Yeah. So then the guests leave and Brad and Janet are shown to their rooms.
Which have video monitoring in them.
Yes. As you do, Karen.
No, you don't, Craig. They are shown to their separate rooms.
Yes. And we see Janet getting ready for bed. And who appears to be Brad comes in, crawls in bed with her. And
we see Janet almost in silhouette, and she looks good.
She does look good in silhouette. She did. But we learn that it's really Dr. Frank-N-Furter impersonating Brad, and he seduces her.
And she just says, "Promise you won't tell Brad." And he says he promises, and that's all it takes.
Yes.
And then they have a moment.
We see Riff Raff and Magenta in Rocky's room. And Riff Raff starts teasing him, right? With candelabra.
Yeah,
I think fire bad. Yes. Fire bad.
Riff Raff and Magenta give a couple looks throughout the beginning and up to this point where they don't look very happy with Frank-N-Furter. You can kind of see something's going on there. You don't know quite what. And they were watching the video when Frank-N-Furter went into Janet's room, but they left. Probably thinking, okay, he's busy. Let's go torment Rocky. And that's what they do. Is chained to the bed.
Yeah, but he breaks his chains. Breaking the chains, Karen.
Dokken plays.
Once again, yeah. And then he escapes down the elevator shaft. He doesn't go down the elevator. He crawls down the elevator shaft.
Well, because of the fire, they scared him.
Candles.
Not torches, just candles.
Candles, yeah.
You see Riff Raff and Magenta kind of kissy face, and he bites her neck. It's weird.
And they're brother and sister.
Especially when we find out they're brother and sister. They're very close.
So then we see Brad getting ready for bed, and who appears to be Janet enters. And basically this scene we just saw just replays.
Same lines and everything.
Yeah. Except this time it's Brad and Frank-N-Furter instead of Janet and Frank-N-Furter. Then Riff Raff.
And he says, "Promise you won't tell Janet."
Yes.
And that's, again, all it takes.
Yeah. Then Riff Raff cuts in on the closed circuit TV to tell Frank-N-Furter that Rocky is free. And
loose on the castle grounds.
And Magenta has released the hounds.
The dogs, yes.
Release the hounds.
Which are German Shepherd dogs, by the way, but we've talked about them multiple times.
I don't even remember seeing the dog. Then Janet takes the elevator up to the lab, and she sees Brad and Frank-N-Furter via the closed circuit TV.
Brad's smoking a cigarette.
Brad's smoking a Marlboro. As you do, Karen. In your robe.
After certain occurrences.
But then she finds Rocky.
Well, she starts crying because that's what she sees on the TV. And then she hears someone else crying and she removes a blanket and it's Rocky and he's back in the original tank.
And he's all bloody.
And she has to help.
Scratched. Yeah. And she dresses his wounds from her slip.
She rips off more and more pieces of her slip to take care of him.
And I think I wrote right here, love connection, Karen. I think
yes,
they've made a love connection. Then we cut back to the smoking man, the expert, talking about the definition of emotion, isn't he? Something like that.
Yes. It says it's a powerful and irrational master. And Magenta and Columbia watch Rocky and Janet give in to their emotions. So Janet sings her song.
Yeah.
Basically, she wants Rocky.
Yep. Janet tries to seduce Rocky, and we do see Rocky fondling her breasts, Karen. Not her bare breasts, though.
No, she calls him a creature of the night.
Next, we cut to Frank-N-Furter, and he's whipping riffraff, right? Punishing riffraff.
Yes, because Rocky got away.
Letting Rocky get away. But they see there is a visitor on the grounds on the video, Karen, and it's Dr. Everett Scott, apparently. Frank-N-Furter's not happy. He blames Brad for bringing him, because apparently he's like a UFO scientist or something.
Well, Brad says he's a friend. He's an old friend of mine.
Next, we see Dr. Scott wheeling around the house.
Obviously, the dogs are not out there anymore.
Yeah, but why is he wheeling around the house so quickly?
Oh, you did? Okay, so what happens is, so Frank-N-Furter says, Dr. Everett Scott is not unknown to me. He says he works for your government. He's attached to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which studies UFOs.
FBI?
Yes, that studies UFOs. So what happens is Dr. Everett Scott's in a wheelchair made out of metal. So Frank-N-Furter turns on a very strong magnet up where he is.
Mm.
And that makes the wheelchair operate on its own, basically being pulled to the magnet up up multiple stairways and through different rooms and everything until he breaks through the wall in the lab. That's how strong the magnet is.
Gotcha. So in the lab, Dr. Scott says, "Oh, Frank-N-Furter, we meet at last," or whatever. And Dr. Scott denies having Brad and Janet as a part of his plan.
He's surprised to see Brad there.
Yeah.
We don't see Janet yet. She's occupied.
Yes. But Dr. Scott says he is there looking for Eddie because he is his nephew.
Then Rocky and Janet are found in the tank.
They emerge from the tank, yeah. Cut back to the smoking man. Apparently there's going to be a dinner.
He talks about how food plays a vital role in life's rituals. The breaking of bread, the last meal of the condemned man. And he's talking about the meal that they're having at the house. And there's a picture of the Last Supper in a book open behind the criminologist. But they all go down to dinner.
Yep. And Frank-N-Furter's carving the meat. And I wrote, ham, question mark?
Yeah, I couldn't tell what it is. With an electric knife.
Yeah. Then they begin singing Happy Birthday to Rocky.
He
So
does
everybody put your party hat on.
Yeah, put your party hat on.
And then Dr. Scott asks about Eddie.
And Columbia freaks out.
Yeah. Frank-N-Furter says something. I even rewound to try to catch exactly what he said. But basically they figure out.
All I said is he changes the subject. But
so basically they figure out they're eating Eddie. That's what the meat is Eddie. And Columbia cries. And Dr. Scott sings a song about Eddie.
He was in with a bad crowd.
But he did send a note to Dr. Scott asking for his help. Come to save him before they kill him. Something to that effect.
He was a juvenile delinquent. He liked rock and roll, porn, and motorbikes.
I thought he said rock and roll porn. I thought it was all one thing, but maybe it's not.
Maybe he did say that. That's what but you know, the biggies. He likes the good stuff. But he was a juvenile delinquent, a disappointment. But we see that Columbia loved him. She has pictures of him all over her room. The note that he sent to his uncle says, "I'm out of my head, or I may be dead. Mustn't carry out their evil deeds," or something to that effect.
Their plan. Yeah, whatever their plan is. Frank-N-Furter pulls the tablecloth from the table, revealing a dead Eddie.
Yes, he's in almost a coffin, and there's a glass top. And so when he pulls the tablecloth off, we see a decomposing Eddie.
Yeah, and Janet runs to Rocky.
Yes, for comfort. Not to Brad.
And Frank-N-Furter ain't happy about that shit either, Karen.
No, he doesn't like that.
So he chases Janet around and as he sings a song. And Dr. Scott and Brad join them all in the lab. Because he chases her up to the lab. Then Frank-N-Furter throws the switch on his Medusa transducer. And it freezes them in the spot they stand.
Yes, they're glued down to the floor.
Can't move. Although Janet does.
Yes, she does a little bit. Because
he's all getting handsy with her.
Yeah, he's singing about her and taunting her physicality. He's saying she's not great.
Then Magenta throws.
She doesn't quite look stuck to the floor now, but he sings his song, and as he nods,
Magenta throws a switch. It turns them into like a marble statue, one by one.
Naked marble statues.
Naked marble statues, yep. Then Columbia confronts Frank-N-Furter because she's not happy with him, and she gets turned to stone too. And then Rocky. So they got all those.
She says she can't stand any more of it. First you spurn me for Eddie, and then you throw him off like an old overcoat for Rocky. You chew people up and spit them out. She loved him, she says, and it got me a big fat nothing. You're like a sponge, because that's when everyone's going to throw their sponge in the movie theater. You take, drain others of their love and emotion. And then she says, choose between me and Rocky. And he makes her into a statue.
I don't think you mentioned a sponge in your prop list.
I did.
Okay.
What do they call it when the character looks at the camera? Breaking the fourth wall or third wall? What is it?
I thought that was the fifth. Shit, I don't know.
Tim Curry does it a couple times as Frank-N-Furter. He looks and talks directly to the camera for brief periods of time.
Fourth wall. Breaking the fourth wall, Karen.
So they're pristine white statues at this point and completely naked. So they probably posed for them. They look pretty accurate. They looked accurate, yeah.
I was wondering if it was like a body cast. You know what I mean?
Don't you think? It looked pretty good.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. Then we cut to the smoking man, the expert again, narrating. Because Tim Curry says it's time for Frank-N-Furter says it's time for the floor show. And smoking man says, well, there's an empty house. What's this floor show going to be about or whatever, right? So then we cut to a theater. All the statues are on the stage dressed in lingerie. What do you call that shit, Karen? Garters and
corsets.
Corsets?
Kind of all dressed in Frank-N-Furter's lingerie. Don't they have the same outfit he has on?
I think so. With boas.
Yes.
And then one by one, the de-Medusa switch is thrown.
Yes.
And the statues are, like I said, they're all dressed in lingerie, and then they all do their little dance.
Yes, as they become de-Medusa-ized, they sing
Which
a song.
I just got just now what that is all about. But okay. Because Medusa, they turn the stone. Yeah, yes. I just got that.
I guess I should have done something about that, but
all right.
I figured most people would know that.
Well, I do. It just took me
I know. Yeah.
6 hours. So they each one by one are freed and they sing and dance. As I said earlier, Rocky and Brad are not very good in high heels.
But Brad looked surprisingly good in lingerie. Not going to lie. But you can't move forward because you have a boob count here.
There aren't any.
Yes, there are. When Columbia's singing, her top falls down.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
Oh, well, that's your boob count, too.
2?
It just falls down.
Okay. As Magenta, or you mean Columbia?
Columbia.
Okay.
Because she's one of the ones who is unfrozen. She's singing about how she loved Frank-N-Furter, but then she loved Eddie. And while she's dancing, her top falls down.
Okay.
And then Rocky's next.
And then after they've all done their little gig.
And they all have makeup on, almost like mime makeup a little bit. White faces, but more makeup than a mime would wear, but still that's the kind of look it is.
Curtain rises there's an backdrop of an RKO radio picture that
It's a tower. Yeah.
with the tower. It's like the film logo or whatever. And Frank-N-Furter appears, and he does his little song and dance, and then he jumps into a swimming pool, jumps into the Froggy's Fog, and ends up in a swimming pool.
Jumps into the Froggy's Fog abyss, which turns into a pool.
Then the others join him in the pool.
He is floating in a life preserver from the Titanic. That's what he's floating in, singing. But the others do join him.
And then, in case you were wondering about Dr. Scott, he unfreezes, but he's wearing, he looks to be dressed normally, right?
On top.
But he has like a blanket on his legs because he's in a wheelchair. And then he, lifts his leg, and we find that he's dressed in hosiery, just like the others, in high heels. Then they all get up on stage and do their little rockettes.
Well, while they're in the
Dance.
water, it's almost like an orgy underwater.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. And the Frank-N-Furter's tattoos kind of wash off. Yeah, you can see it. It's not so good, but.
And right here I wrote, Rocky is not a good dancer.
Well, he's in heels.
So then Riff Raff and Magenta enter. It's time to return to Transylvania.
And they look a little different.
They do.
Riff Raff has a tiny little ponytail on top of his head, and Magenta
bun.
has Bride of Frankenstein hair.
And they're wearing like alien clothing.
Yes. And
with garter belts and hose.
Yes. Riff Raff is the new commander.
Then Frank-N-Furter sings he wants to go with them. He wants to go home. I'm going home.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
And an audience appears out of nowhere in the theater, and they applaud.
It's a ballad about going home, and his tattoos are back.
He finishes, and Magenta says, how sentimental. And Riff Raff tells Frank-N-Furter that they aren't taking him with him. They said they're going. He's not going with them. So then Riff Raff kills Columbia with a laser gun.
That looks like a trident.
Yeah, pitchfork.
Yep.
And then he shoots and kills Frank-N-Furter. Rocky goes over and holds him. He picks him up. He's going to carry him away, and Riff Raff tries to shoot Rocky, but the lasers bounce off of him. Karen, he's like the Man of Steel.
Yes. He's carrying Frank-N-Furter up the tower like King Kong.
Then the tower falls, killing Rocky. He gone.
Into the pool.
Yeah, he's floating in the pool. And Riff Raff tells Dr. Scott and the others to leave while they still can, as Frank-N-Furter floats in the pool.
They're about to beam the entire house back to the planet transsexual in the galaxy of Transylvania.
Yeah. So Brad, Janet, and Dr. Scott leave. And the castle takes off like a rocket into space. Crossfade to a spinning globe and the smoking man again, Karen, the expert. Credits, the end.
They do picture credits, which again, I like. I know I've mentioned it before. And there's definitely sequel potential, but there never was a sequel.
There were plans, but never was one. Partly because Tim Curry didn't want to do it again. But he's dead anyway, Karen.
In the film, you can always be brought back.
No, maybe that was...
He has the biochemical knowledge of how to bring life.
All right, Karen. Anything you really enjoyed or were pleasantly surprised by in this film, this musical, this horror/musical from 1975?
Well, as I stated, I like a good musical, or any musical. It doesn't even have to be good. I thought Tim Curry was excellent in it. He makes me laugh in it. I think it's funny. It's very campy. There's not much horror at all. The only horror really is the killing of Meatloaf. I guess there's the creation of the man, which we've deemed horror from Frankenstein. I just think it's fun. And I know going into it, it's going to be fun. So I don't look at it critically because I'm just having a good time when I watch it. Did you like anything?
I enjoy Tim Curry. The sets were okay. I mean, costuming and makeup was pretty good, I guess.
Kind of done on the cheap, but it didn't look bad.
Acting overall, I guess, was good. Right? I mean, Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon, they were both good at playing what they were supposed to play.
I did look up if they were singing, and they were.
Mm-hmm.
That is their voices.
Yeah.
Except I don't think Rocky's is Rocky's voice. I mean, come on, you learn a new dance.
It's pretty good. The first, I say half, almost the first half. It's pretty good. And then it kind of goes off the rails for me.
So you usually stop watching it about halfway through. You'd never seen the end.
Nope. I don't think I'd made it to the dinner scene. I think that's just about the time
It does get a little abrupt. And that's one of the things. It's not that I didn't like it. There are just things in it. And I know it's a movie, but if someone put me in a room after I'd seen everything I'd seen, I would be trying to get away, not going to bed.
I mean, the story
it's just a weird story.
There's no continuity to it. It's just, hey, how about if they did this? You know, it would be cool if we did this.
What do you think they were smoking when they came up with it? I think they tried to grab a bunch of different things from old movies and shove them in there. You know, there's obviously references to Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, King Kong. There are probably a lot of the alien movies from the old classics.
The guy who played Riff Raff's the guy who wrote it.
Well, that's why he gets to be the winner at the end.
And lyrics and everything. So
it's kind of feels like
I'd be curious. I don't,
some of those things like Mamma Mia that's out where you have a group of songs and you have to figure out a story that would go with it and fit the songs in there. That's what it feels like. So I think that's what they did. I think they took songs and created a story. Well, what can we do with this? I mean, obviously they had names and characters, so they must have fleshed it out a little bit because a lot of the songs have Janet and Rocky and names in them.
I'd be curious to see or to know what the difference, if there's much difference in between the play or, the musical it was based on and the film, probably not.
I saw a production of it in Cincinnati at like the Playhouse or something. It's not a lot different.
Okay.
All the songs are definitely in it. Jerry Springer was the guy, the criminologist who came on film. On video. He wasn't actually there.
Tim Curry was in the original cast, and I think the Riff Raff and the other guy and Magenta and Columbia were too in the original cast. But whatever.
It might be slightly better as a play.
Funny you say that, Karen. Anything you were disappointed in?
Well, the story's weak.
Halfway through.
I don't think that's true, but the story is definitely weak.
It is. Rocky wasn't very good either.
No, he was a little disappointing. I'd admit that. He wasn't even that muscular. I mean, he was muscular, but not over the top. He wasn't bodybuilding. He didn't look like Charles Atlas. He was well built, but not.
And it's bad. It's bad camp. It's like camp for camp's sake, or you know what I mean?
It's a little over the top.
Trying too hard or something.
No, I didn't think so, but
I don't know.
I just think it's fun.
All right, what kind of cocktail rating you want to give this, Karen?
I just don't think you like cult classics. You didn't like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and you didn't like this one.
It was terrible. Terrible.
I'd give it a 3.
This one's pretty good through the first half. Like watching it again, I was like kind of shocked that it went right from Time Warp and the Sweet Transvestite. That's pretty strong.
Those are
that's
two
a pretty strong first half, right? And from there it goes down. What'd you give it?
I said I'd give it a 3, but I bet you'll give it a 4.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was thinking 4.
Because I know what it is going in, so I don't ding it for being that way because I expect it. But it's not as good as some of the 3s we've done. So it's a 4, but it's fun. I'd watch it again.
I'd watch the first half again.
I would like to go see it in a theater and see the antics that go along with it. And apparently people act things out up on a stage along with it. Be quite the spectacle, I think. It's usually at midnight.
It's too late for me, Karen.
You could take a nap.
Would you like to hear some critic reviews of the time, Karen?
Probably not, but I guess. Critics Corner is not going to help my case here.
So first I'll say it's got a 79% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, and 85% approval on Google.
That's
Google
because
users.
it's a cult. It has a cult following.
My first review, Karen, is by Roger Ebert from August 1976.
Did it take that long to come out in America?
No, it came out in September.
Oh.
It just took him that long to see it and review it, I guess. The Rocky Horror Picture Show would be more fun, I suspect, if it weren't a picture show. It belongs on the stage with the performers and audience joining in a collective send-up. The choreography, the compositions, and even the attitudes of the cast imply a stage ambiance. And it invites the kind of laughter and audience participation that makes sense only if the performers are there on the stage, creating mutual karma. And I am paraphrasing. Dr. Furter is played by a British actor named Tim Curry. I guess unknown at the time, right?
I guess.
Who had the stage role in London and Los Angeles and bears a certain resemblance to Loretta Young in drag. He's the best thing in the movie, maybe because he seems to be having the most fun.
He did seem to be having fun.
He's also a capable actor, which is more than you can say for the assorted Transylvanian extras who are dragged on screen for the various production numbers and look like they were invited to the wrong party. So that's Roger Ebert.
He does look like he's having fun, which probably is what I enjoy about it.
Next one is from Variety, Karen. December 31st of 1974. So this is like a preview screening or some shit, right? And this one I will read in its entirety because it's pretty short. They usually are. I'm not going to read all the cast names, though, because you know how Variety names every fucking body. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is adapted from a rock stage musical of same title, set in a spooky castle deep in the heart of Ohio. It on a rain-swept night stumble Janet and Brad, wholesome straights, hoping to find a telephone, but finding instead the earthy lair of some weirdos from the planet Transylvania. Chief freak herein is the bisexual Frank-N-Furter, played with relish by Tim Curry, who first seduces Janet and then conquers Brad. The plot mixture also includes Curry's monster creation, rippled, muscled Rocky, a revenging scientist, riffraff, Curry's hunchback lackey, and assorted groupies of which Magenta and Columbia are most prominent. Overall, however, most of the jokes that might have seemed jolly fun on stage now appear obvious and even flat. The sparkle's gone.
Yeah, I think you have to be bigger on stage. And that's what they do in the movie. And you're probably right. And you'll just have to see the play now.
I suppose, Karen. What do you think of the Time Warp cocktail?
I like the Time Warp cocktail.
Mine has evaporated. Not much to it.
No, not a lot of it.
That's pretty good.
So what was your favorite musical number in this movie?
I don't know. Probably Sweet Transvestite.
Because Tim Curry sings it, yeah.
Yeah, and there's the cuts in between where he's like speaking to them and things like,
yeah.
Come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. And
he is amazing.
Yeah. What's your favorite, Karen?
Probably the same. Time Warp's funny, though. Jack Black just did a remake of it over. If anybody follows him, it's pretty funny.
All right. Anything we learned today, Karen?
What did we learn today? We learned about the plain dealer. We learned who was singing at the beginning of the movie. We learned about Richard Nixon's resignation. Charles Atlas. Might be it. Dawkins reference.
The Madison.
Oh, the Madison. Yes.
The Time Warp. How to do the Time Warp. The definition of emotion. And you gave us the list of the official props, Karen.
That's true. I'm so kind.
All you need to know.
Everybody will be prepared. Just check with your theater before you go so you don't get kicked out.
All right, Karen, anything else, or are we on to the next film?
Well, the next film is your choice. What do you have?
Oh, is it, Karen?
That's how it works.
Turning the calendar into August some more. Film I have chosen, Karen, is a film was released as Crowley in the United States.
Is it a Hammer film?
It is not. In the UK, it was called The Chemical Wedding. On Amazon Prime, though, you find it under Crowley.
Okay.
Based on a screenplay by Bruce Dickinson.
Oh, I have not heard of this. It's not a musical presentation.
No, it has music in it, but it's not a musical. And Bruce's birthday is coming up. So his birthday is August 7th, and our next episode comes out August 9th. So I thought we'd do the film Crowley.
Wow, that's exciting. He sure is multi-talented, isn't he?
Well, don't get too excited till you watch it, Karen.
Have you seen it before?
Yes, I have. Maybe it'll be better the second time. We'll see. I guess I'm not really building it up for you, am I?
I know, everybody's so excited.
I have a cocktail for the film as well, Karen.
Excellent. Sounds like we might need it. What's that?
It's the absinthe frappe.
I'm very surprised to hear that.
Taking one for the team, Karen. So basically, we're going to need absinthe, simple syrup, ice, crushed ice, and mint for garnish.
That's it?
Well, that's it.
Wow.
I know.
The dreams are coming.
Should be an interesting episode.
The nightmares are going to get us.
Should be an interesting evening, Karen.
Well,
apparently, it's a New Orleans drink.
That makes sense.
And Aleister Crowley spent some of his time in New Orleans, and this was one of his favorites.
Okay.
So there you go. It's 1.5 ounces of absinthe and 1/2 ounce of simple syrup and ice, basically.
Like a slushy, though. That's probably what it is.
Yep, like a slushy. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, we need to thank our listeners. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Thank you for spending time with us. What about you, Greg? Who do you need to thank?
Karen, I need to thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast once again.
Music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening. Want to keep in touch? Check out our website, scaryspirits.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Scary Spirits Podcast. Find us on YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at info@scaryspirits.com. To help us grow the podcast, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really do appreciate your support. And as always, please drink responsibly.